How do you craft an estate plan when you own a house with your ex-spouse? Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Small. I'm the owner of CMS Law Firm. We do estate planning, we do probate, we do it well. And I'm here to talk estate planning. That's what we do. All right, before I get to that though, if you have questions about this or anything else related to estate planning or probate, and you want to talk with us over the phone for free, you can do so by going to cmslawfirm.com. Okay, this is a real world story. Okay, so I just had coffee with someone today, and they were wanting to talk about what to do with their real life situation. They are divorced, and they own a house with their ex-spouse. It is a rental house. They have kids, and they both they're not in disagreement on what to do with the house, but they were wondering what they could do to plan for the house when they are gone. And it's tricky, right? The hard thing about owning a house with someone else is, for the most part, they have to agree on what to do with the house. If one wants to buy and one wants to sell, they're kind of in a bind. If the other one wants to buy and the other one wants to sell, they're kind of in a bind. And what do we do when someone dies? That's also the big question, okay? Generally, and this is Washington State, by the way, that I'm talking about specifically, so the rules might be slightly different in your state. Generally, when two people own a house, they own the interest as tenants in common, is what it's called. What that means is each person owns their half of the house, and when that person dies, their half of the house will go wherever they direct it. Okay. Often, if you are married, it will go to your spouse. If you have no will or no trust or anything in place, it will go to your spouse. In this case, because they are divorced, if one of them dies, the half of the house is going to go to wherever they direct it, okay, not to the other owner of the house, which creates its own problem. Okay. The other thing is they have children together. The idea is to keep the house, for the kids, which is fine. But if one of parties, I don't know what to call them, if one of the parties dies first, there's no guarantee that the other one is going to uphold their end of the bargain with the house. So you wouldn't necessarily want to give your ex-spouse that half of the house, spouse and house, we're rhyming, because they might get remarried, they might give it away to somebody else, they might sell it, they might not do what you want to be done with the house. So what are the different options? Option one, my first suggestion was just to not worry about the ex-spouse and plan for yourself. What this really means is create a trust, put your half of the house in the trust. In this specific case, the person I was talking to wanted to create a situation where the assets did not go to the kids outright. They're younger and they just wanted some oversight over those assets. Create a trust, put your half of the house in the trust, and then you can direct what happens with your half of the rent proceeds, essentially. What happens if the house wants to be sold? You can put all of that information into the trust, and you can have some certainty that it will carry on once you are gone. That's sort of the stage one. The second thing I suggested was, right now, just one person buy the other person out. Okay? Now, a lot of things need to go right. In this case, you need to have some money involved, right? They need to be able to, find some way to pay for that half of the house. That's not always an option, right? And it's not always something that you want to do either. In Washington and Seattle, where I'm at, real estate is appreciating relatively quickly. You may not want to let go of that asset. And this is kind of what's happening in this case. They both want to keep it for a good reason. So that option's kind of out. The next thing that I suggested that they could do is a little more creative. What I suggested is you could essentially create an LLC where they are both the members. When you create this LLC, you're going to create an operating agreement that outlines how the business is run. Typically, in an operating agreement, you're going to have a clause that dictates what happens if someone dies, okay, which is really what we're talking about here. And in this case, you could insert into this LLC language that if someone dies, the living ex-spouse is going to be required to pay out to the other ex-spouse their half of the proceeds of the house in some way. You may think to yourself, okay, well, we have this liquidity problem still exists. Yes and no. In creating this LLC, you could each get term life insurance policies for the balance of the house. So if let's say it's $1 million house, they could each get $500,000 life insurance policies, and they could make the beneficiary on those policies the LLC. Okay, I believe you could do that. Then when someone dies, that life insurance policy pays out to the LLC, and then the LLC has liquidity to pay off the ex-spouse who has just died. That liquidity can then be used to give to the kids or do whatever that person wants, and the surviving ex-spouse can sort of do whatever they want with the property. So you have options. My point, this is why you want to talk to an estate planning attorney when you're trying to figure out what to do with your stuff, because there are different options. There are good things, there are bad things, but without knowing what all of the different options are, you may miss out on something that really, really works for your situation. Okay? So at the end of the day, my advice was, don't worry too much about this house. Okay? If it needs to go through probate, if it needs to be figured out, that's fine. The first thing to do, and the first thing for all of you to do, the first step, get your foundational plan done. Power of attorney, medical power of attorney, healthcare directive, disposition instructions, will, and if you need it, a revocable trust. Figure out all these details after you get that done, because if something happens to you in the meantime, it doesn't matter anyway. Okay? So take that to heart. Get something done. That's it for today. If you like this, that's great. Hit the like button, leave a comment, follow, subscribe, do all those things if you don't want to miss out. And if you want to talk about this more over the phone for free, you can go to cmslawfirm.com and we'd be happy to do it. All right. All right. That is it for today. I am Christopher Small. I'm the owner of CMS Law Firm. We do estate planning. We do probate. We do it well. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Appreciate you. And I will talk to you again soon. See ya.